Section 3 of For the Birds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Penny Coffeen. For the Birds by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Questions about feeding wild birds. When is the best time to start? Usually, whenever the weather is severe, birds will appreciate a reliable supplemental food source. In northern areas, start before the onset of cold weather, so birds have time to find the feeder. When's the best time to stop? Although you can feed birds year-round, especially with fruit and nectar, you can stop feeding seeds once a reliable supply of insects is available in the spring. Is it best to stop feeding hummingbirds after Labor Day? There is no evidence that feeding hummingbirds after Labor Day will keep them from migrating. In fact, it may help a weakened straggler refuel for the long haul. Leave your nectar feeders out until the birds stop coming. How long does it take for birds to find a feeder? It may take more time for birds to find window feeders than hanging or pole-mounted feeders. You may want to wrap aluminum foil around the top of the feeder hanger. Sometimes all it takes is the reflection of light on the foil to catch their attention. My feeder is full of seeds. I haven't seen a bird in months. Am I doing something wrong? When birds desert your feeder, it may be simply that a lot of natural food is available nearby. Or something may be wrong, such as spoiled seeds or a contaminated feeder. Throw the seeds away and wash the feeder. Look at where your feeder is placed. Be sure it's not vulnerable to predators. At the same time, make sure it is not in an open area, away from the cover in which birds usually travel. Will birds' feet stick to metal feeders and perches in the wet winter weather? Birds don't have sweat glands on their feet, so they won't freeze onto metal feeders. There's no need to cover any metal feeders' parts with plastic or wood to protect birds' feet, tongues, or eyes. Do wild birds need grit? Birds have no teeth to grind their food. The dirt, sand, pebbles, and grit they eat sit in their crop and help grind up their food. Adding grit to your feeder is helpful, particularly in the winter and spring. Crushed eggshells do the same thing, and in the spring have an added benefit. They provide birds with extra calcium for producing eggs of their own. Can birds choke on peanut butter? There is no evidence that birds can choke on peanut butter. However, birds have no salivary glands. You can make it easier on them by mixing peanut butter with lard, cornmeal, or grit. Your birds will appreciate drinking water, too, from a bird bath or trough. Won't suet go bad in the summer? In the winter, raw beef fat from the local butcher is all you need for your suet feeder. When temperatures rise, raw fat can melt and get rancid. It's safer to use commercially rendered suet cakes in the spring and summer months. Rendering, boiling, the fat kills bacteria. What is hummingbird nectar? Do hummers need nectar fortified with vitamins and minerals? You can make your own hummingbird nectar by adding a 1/4 cup of sugar to a cup of boiling water. Remember, sugar water will ferment when left in the hot sun, turning nectar deadly. Do not put out a nectar feeder if you are not willing to clean it at least weekly, preferably twice a week. Hummers eat insects for their protein. There is no evidence that these tiny birds need vitamin and mineral supplements. There is also no evidence that adding red food coloring to nectar will harm the birds, but it probably is not necessary to attract them. Just put your feeder near red flowers or buy a red hummingbird feeder. How can I avoid bees at my hummingbird feeder? Bees will inevitably visit your hummingbird feeder, especially in hot weather. Little plastic bee guards may help keep them from getting nectar, but it won't stop them from trying. Don't take the chance of contaminating your nectar by putting vegetable oil around the feeding portals. One solution is to add a few small feeders away from where people are likely to be bothered by bees. How close to my window can I put a feeder? Birds will come right to your window. Sometimes it takes a while for them to overcome their initial reluctance, so be patient. Don't worry that a feeder on the window will cause birds to fly into the window. Birds fly into the window because they see the reflection of the woods. Window feeders and decals help break up the reflection. Is cracked corn coated with a red dye safe to use? No, the red or pink coating is capstan, a fungicide used on seeds meant for planting. If you buy a bag of cracked corn or other seed treated with capstan, return it to the store. It can kill horses, other mammals, and wild birds. I bought a bag of sunflower seeds early in the spring. Over the summer, I first noticed worms, then moths. What can I do to keep the bugs out? Moths lay their eggs in sunflower seeds. The eggs lay dormant as long as the seeds are stored in a cool, dry place. In the summer, seeds get hot and the eggs hatch. The best way to avoid this problem is to buy seeds in smaller quantities, or store your seeds in a cool, dry place. It also helps to know where your retailer stores the seed. An air-conditioned storage unit is the better choice. Insects also lay their eggs in burlap bags. Don't buy seeds in burlap bags. Don't buy seed in paper and plastic bags with patched holes. That may be a sign of insect or rodent infestation. End of section 3.
Section 4 of For the Birds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Suzanne Axt. For the Birds, by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Houses for Birds, Part 1. Homes for the birds. Birds you can attract to nest boxes. Many of the birds that visit feeders and baths may stay and nest in nearby trees. Most of them, including cardinals, doves, and orioles, don't nest in boxes. You can still help them by considering their food and shelter requirements in your landscape plans. More than 24 North American birds nest in bird houses. The following descriptions will help you determine which birds might visit your neighborhood. Bluebirds. If you put up a bluebird house near an old field, orchid, park, cemetery, or golf course, you might have a chance of attracting a pair of bluebirds. They prefer nest boxes on a tree stump or wooden fence post between 3 and 5 feet high. Bluebirds also nest in abandoned woodpecker nest holes. The most important measurement is the hole diameter. 1.5 inches is small enough to deter starlings, which, along with house sparrows, have been known to kill bluebirds as well as adults sitting on the nest. Bluebirds have problems with other animals too. Discourage cats, snakes, raccoons, and chipmunks by mounting the house on a metal pole, or use a metal predator guard on a wood post. American robins. The robin is our largest thrush. They prefer to build their nest in the crotch of a tree. If you don't have an appropriate tree, you can offer a nesting platform. Pick a spot 6 feet or higher up on a shaded tree trunk or under the overhang of a shed or porch. Creating a mud puddle nearby offers further enticement as robins use mud to hold their nest together. Chickadees, nuthatches, and titmice. Chickadees, titmice, and nuthatches share the same food, feeders, and habitat. If you put a properly designed nest box in a wooded yard, at least one of these species might check it out. Put chickadee houses at eye level. Hang them from limbs or secure them to tree trunks. The entrance hole should be 1 1/8 inches to attract chickadees, yet exclude house sparrows. Anchor houses for nuthatches on tree trunks 5 to 6 feet off the ground. Brown creepers and Protonary warblers. Look for brown creepers to nest behind the curved bark of tree trunks. In heavily wooded yards, slab bark houses appeal to creepers. Protonary warblers also prefer slab bark houses or bluebird boxes attached to a tree trunk, but theirs must be placed over water, lakes, rivers, or swamps, with a good canopy of trees overhead. Wrens. Wrens don't seem to be very picky about where they nest. Try nest boxes with a 1-inch by 2-inch horizontal slot, 1.5-inch by 2.5-inch for the larger Carolina wrens instead of a circle. These are easier for the wrens to use. However, the larger the opening, the more likely it is house sparrows will occupy the box. Wrens are known for filling a nest cavity with twigs, regardless of whether they use the nest to raise their young. Since male house wrens build several nests for the female to choose from, hang several nest boxes at eye level on partly sunlit tree limbs. Wrens are sociable and will accept nest boxes quite close to your house. Tree and violet-green swallows. Tree swallows prefer nest boxes attached to dead trees. Space the boxes about 7 feet apart for these white-bellied birds with iridescent blue-green backs and wings. The ideal setting for these insect eaters is on the edge of a large field near a lake, pond, or river. Violet-green swallows nest in forested mountains of the west. Boxes placed on large trees in a semi-open woodland will attract them. Barn swallows and phoebes. If you have the right habitat, like an open barn or old shed, barn swallows and phoebes are easy to attract. It's their nesting behavior, not their plumage or song, that catches your attention. However, these birds tend to nest where you would rather not have them, on a ledge right over your front door. To avoid a mess by your door, offer the birds a nesting shelf nearby where you'd rather have them. Purple martins. Many people want martins in their yard because it's been said these birds eat 2,000 mosquitoes a day. While it's true that they eat flying insects, don't expect purple martins to eliminate mosquitoes in your yard completely. Martins prefer dragonflies, which prey on mosquito larvae. If you want to help rid your yard of mosquitoes, put up a bat roosting box. One bat can eat thousands of mosquitoes a night. Martins are entertaining creatures, however, and you'll enjoy watching their antics in your backyard. You have the best chance of attracting martins if you put a house on the edge of a pond or river, surrounded by a field or lawn. Martins need a radius of about 40 feet of unobstructed flying space around their houses. A telephone wire nearby gives them a place to perch in sociable groups. Martins nest in groups, so you'll need a house with a minimum of 4 large rooms, 6 or more inches on all sides, with a 2.5-inch entrance hole about 1.5 inches above the floor. Ventilation and drainage are critical factors in martin house design. Porches, railings, porch dividers, and supplement roof perches, like a TV antenna, make any house more appealing. You can also make houses from gourds by fashioning an entrance hole and small holes in the bottom for drainage. If you use gourds, it's not necessary to add railings and perches. Adult martins will perch on the wire used to hang the houses. Before you select a house, think about what kind of pole you're going to put it on. Martins occupy a house 10 to 20 feet off the ground. Some poles are less cumbersome than others. Gourd houses are the easiest to set up. String them from a wire between 2 poles, from a sectional aluminum pole, or on pulleys mounted to a crossbar high up on a pole. You can mount lightweight aluminum houses for martins on telescoping poles, providing easy access for maintenance and inspection. Because of their weight, more than 30 pounds. Wood houses should not be mounted on telescoping poles. You'll have to use a sturdy metal or a wooden pole attached to a pivot post. The problem with this lowering technique is that you can't tilt the house without damaging the nest inside. If you put your house on a shorter, fixed pole, 10 to 12 feet high, you can use a ladder to inspect and maintain it. Flycatchers. The great crested flycatcher and its western cousin, the ash-throated flycatcher, are common in wooded suburbs and rural areas with woodlots. Their natural nesting sites are abandoned woodpecker holes. Flycatchers may nest in a birdhouse if it is placed above 10 feet up in a tree, in an orchard, or at the edge of a field or stream. This is a long shot, but well worth the effort if you are successful. Woodpeckers. You can attract all types of woodpeckers with the suet feeders, but only the flicker is likely to use a birdhouse. They prefer a box with a roughened interior and a floor covered with a 2-inch layer of wood chips or coarse sawdust. Flickers are especially attracted to nest boxes filled with sawdust, which they excavate to suit themselves. For best results, place the box high up on a tree trunk exposed to direct sunlight. Try building a birdhouse for the other species of woodpeckers, following the guidelines in this booklet. You might be surprised. Owls. Most owls seldom build their own nest. Great horned and long-eared owls prefer abandoned crow and hawk nests. Other owls, barred, barn, saw-whet, boreal, and screech, nest in tree cavities and bird houses. Barn owls are best known for selecting nesting sites near farms. Where trees are sparse, these birds will nest in church steeples, silos, and barns. If you live near a farm or a golf course, try fastening a nest box for owls about 15 feet up on a tree trunk. Screech owls prefer abandoned woodpecker holes at the edge of a field or neglected orchard. They will readily take to boxes lined with an inch or two of wood shavings. If you clean the box out in late spring after the young owls have fledged, you may attract a second tenant, a kestrel. Trees isolated from larger tracts of wood have less chance of squirrels taking over the box. End of section 4. Section 5 of For the Birds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Suzanne Axt. For the Birds by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Houses for Birds, Part 2. Selecting a house. In the birdhouse business, there's no such thing as one size fits all. Decide which bird you want to attract, then get a house for that particular bird. Look through any book or catalog and you'll see birdhouses of all sizes and shapes, with perches and without, made of materials you might not have thought of: recycled paper, gourds, plastic, rubber, pottery, metal, and concrete. The proper combination of quality materials and design makes a good birdhouse. Materials. Wood is just about the best building material for any birdhouse. It's durable and has good insulating qualities and breathes. 3/4-inch thick bald cypress and red cedar are recommended. Pine and exterior-grade plywood will do, but they are not as durable. It makes no difference whether the wood is slab, rough cut, or finished, as long as the inside has not been treated with stains or preservatives. Fumes from the chemicals could harm the birds. There's no need to paint cypress and cedar, but pine and plywood houses will last longer with a coat of water-based exterior latex paint. White is the color for purple martin houses. Tan, gray, or dull green works best for the other cavity nesting species. The dull, light colors reflect heat and are less conspicuous to predators. Don't paint the inside of the box or the entrance hole. Regardless of which wood you select, gluing all the joints before you nail them will extend the life of your birdhouse. Galvanized or brass shank nails, hinges, and screws resist rusting and hold boxes together more tightly as they age. Resist the temptation to put a metal roof on your birdhouse. Reflective metal makes sense for martin houses up on a 16-foot pole, but when it's tacked onto the roof of a wood chickadee house, the shiny metal is more likely to attract predators. Natural gourds make very attractive birdhouses. They breathe, and because they sway in the wind, they are less likely to be taken over by house sparrows and starlings. Grow your own gourds and you'll have dozens to choose from in the years ahead. If you don't have the space to grow them, a coat of polyurethane or exterior latex on the outside only will add years to one you have. Properly designed pottery, aluminum for purple martins only, concrete and plastic houses are durable, but don't drop them. Be sure to provide ventilation, drainage, and easy access for maintenance and monitoring. Concrete, or a mix of concrete and sawdust, offers protection other houses cannot. Squirrels can't chew their way in. Design. How elaborate you make your birdhouse depends on your own taste. In addition to where you place the box, the most important considerations are box height, depth, floor dimensions, diameter of entrance hole, and height of the hole above the box floor. Refer to the following chart before building your nest box, keeping in mind that birds make their own choices without regard for charts, so don't be surprised if you find tenants you never expected in a house you intended for someone else. Now that you have the correct dimensions for your birdhouse, take a look at how to make it safe. Ventilation, drainage, susceptibility to predators, and ease of maintenance. Ventilation. You should provide air vents in bird boxes. There are 2 ways to provide ventilation. Leave gaps between the roof and sides of the box, or drill 1/4-inch holes just below the roof. Drainage. Water becomes a problem when it sits in the bottom of a birdhouse. A roof with sufficient slope and overhang offers some protection. Drilling the entrance hole on an upward slant may also help keep the water out. Regardless of design, driving rain will get in through the entrance hole. You can assure proper drainage by cutting away the corners of the box floor and drilling 1/4-inch holes. Nest boxes will last longer if the floors are recessed about 1/4 inch. Entrance hole. Look for the entrance hole on the front panel near the top. A rough surface both inside and out makes it easier for the adults to get into the box, and when it's time, for the nestlings to climb out. If your box is made of finished wood, add a couple of grooves outside below the hole. Open the front panel and add grooves, cleats, or wire mesh to the inside. Never put up a birdhouse with a perch below the entrance hole. Perches offer starlings, house sparrows, and other predators a convenient place to wait for lunch. Don't be tempted by duplexes or houses that have more than one entrance hole. Except for purple martins, cavity nesting birds prefer not to share a house. While these condos look great in your yard, starlings and house sparrows are inclined to use them. Accessibility. Birdhouses should be easily accessible so you can see how your birds are doing and clean out the house. Monitor your birdhouses every week and evict unwanted creatures, such as house sparrows or starlings. Be careful when you inspect your bird boxes. You may find something other than a bird inside. Don't be surprised to see squirrels, mice, snakes, or insects. Look for fleas, flies, mites, larvae, and lice in the bottom of the box. If you find insects and parasites, your first reaction may be to grab the nearest can of insect spray. If you do, use only insecticides known to be safe around birds. 1% rhodonian powder or pyrethrin spray. If wasps are a problem, coat the inside top of the box with bar soap. Here's how to check your nest boxes for unwanted visitors. Watch the nest for 20 to 30 minutes. If you don't see or hear any birds near the box, go over and tap on the box. If you hear bird sounds, open the top and take a quick peek inside. If everything is all right, close the box. If you see problems, parasites or predators, remove them and close the box. A birdhouse with easy access makes the job simple. Most birdhouses can be opened from the top, the side, the front, or the bottom. Boxes that open from the top and the front provide the easiest access. Opening the box from the top is less likely to disturb nesting birds. It's impossible to open a box from the bottom without the nest falling out. While side and front opening boxes are convenient for cleaning and monitoring, they have one drawback. The nestlings may jump out. If this happens, don't panic. Pick them up and put them back in the nest. Don't worry that the adults will reject the nestlings if you handle them. That's a myth. Most birds have a terrible sense of smell. If you clean out your nest boxes after each brood has fledged, several pairs may use the nest throughout the summer. Some cavity nesting birds will not nest again in a box full of old nesting material. In the fall, after you've cleaned out your nest box for the last time, you can put it in storage or leave it out. Gourds and pottery last longer if you take them in for the winter. You can leave your purple martin houses up, but plug the entrance holes to discourage starlings and house sparrows. Leaving your wood and concrete houses out provides shelter for birds, flying squirrels, and other animals during winter. Each spring, thoroughly clean all houses left out for the winter. Limiting predator access. Proper box depth and roof and entrance hole design will help reduce access by predators, such as raccoons, cats, opossums, and squirrels. Sometimes, all it takes is an angled roof with a 3-inch overhang to discover small mammals. The entrance hole is the only thing between a predator and a birdhouse full of nestlings. By itself, the 3/4-inch wall is not wide enough to keep out the arm of a raccoon or house cat. Add a predator guard. A 3/4-inch thick rectangular wood block with an entrance hole cut in it to thicken the wall, and you'll discourage sparrows, starlings, and cats. Birdhouse placement. Where you put your house is as important as its design and construction. Cavity nesting birds are very particular about where they live. If you don't have the right habitat, the birds are not likely to find the house. You can modify your land to attract the birds you want to see by putting out a bird bath, planting fruit-bearing shrubs, including more trees, or installing a pond with a waterfall. Once you've matched up the right birdhouse with the appropriate habitat, you have to know where to put the nest box. Should you hang it from a tree limb, nail it to a fence, or mount it on a pole or a tree trunk? Most species require a fairly narrow range of heights for nest boxes. After checking the table in this brochure, pick a height that's convenient for you. After all, you will want to watch what goes on and keep the box clean. If you want to watch chickadees from your second-floor window or deck, 15 feet is reasonable, but it's a lot easier to clean out a box at eye level. Here are some tips on where to put birdhouses. Don't put birdhouses near bird feeders. Houses mounted on metal poles are less vulnerable to predators than houses nailed to tree trunks or hung from tree limbs. Use no more than 4 small nest boxes or 1 large box per acre for any one species. Put about 100 yards between bluebird boxes and 75 yards between swallow boxes. If you have both species, pair the houses with 1 bluebird box 25 feet from a swallow box. Don't put more than 1 box in a tree unless the tree is extremely large or the boxes are for different species. If you have very hot summers, face the entrance holes of your boxes north or east to avoid overheating the box. End of section 5.